every year I go through this process of reflection. So I tend to I do a like hours long events where I'm reflecting on the previous year, thinking about the year ahead, and I always ask God to give me a word. Like, what is going to be my word for the upcoming year? And so, the word that like immediately came to me this year for this year was bravery, and I was like, that's a strange word. Like, what do you mean bravery? And I said, okay, and as I thought more about bravery and this connection to things, I want to talk a little bit today about the connection between bravery and faith, and what I'm still in process of learning, but in my little 8 months of of walking in bravery, have learned. And what's interesting is that Mark Clark kept asking me this question at homecoming, like, what song is in your heart? And I was like, sir, none. I don't feel well. I don't want to sing anything. But then I started thinking, and if you are with me for any period of time, ask everybody that I work with, they'll tell you I sing all day at work. I literally, there's always something that I'm singing. And there's a specific song that I'm going to talk to you about a little bit about that, but a little bit later. But I wanted to talk about this, and so as I go into month 8 of my year of bravery, I understand a lot more fully what was meant when this word was chosen. And I'm going to share about that. That connection has been driving me, and I've learned some things in this time. And so the message, the scripture that I want to point out is in Hebrews chapter 11, and basically the whole chapter actually has this word of faith, but and these examples of faith. But I just want to do like a short passage, 32 through 38, and I'm going to read it in the New King James Version. And it says, what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and Barak, and Samson and Jephthah, also of David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to fight the armies of the aliens. Women received their dead, raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trial of mockings and scourgings. Yes, and of the chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, were tempted, were slain with the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute, afflicted, tormented, of whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains, in dens and in caves of the earth. And as I read that scripture and just sat and meditated on it, this whole chapter centers, as I said, about living by faith. But this chapter was really good at about giving all these different examples about actually what that looked like and how we can overcome. And so I want to just share a few lessons that I've learned on this journey to bravery. And the first thing was that this is not a new journey in history. Like, if you go to the top of Hebrews, the very first verse of this chapter, Hebrews 11, um, verse 1 is, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. So historically, we know that faith has been a necessary telling for our ancestors. By faith they were in seeking of God's approval, and in many ways we see the evidence of that. So that's the first lesson, is that there is nothing new, right? It's not new to me, but the lesson is they had faith, and so can I. That there's a bravery in everything that we have seen, experienced, and that we are probably currently experiencing at the moment. So that's number one. Number two, I've learned to be in communication with God, and that is through prayer, and even more important through listening. I think we spend a lot of time talking about prayer, but not enough time talking about sitting and listening and really trying to hear what is being said to you. And sometimes that listening, what I have come to understand is that you are quiet. There's been a lot of things that people are like, I didn't know you was this. I didn't know you were here. You didn't know anything because it was a time for me to just be quiet. That sometimes you don't have to say everything, and in that it also helps you, right, to clear up some of that communication, what's lost, so you're not hearing your own voice, that you're actually tapping into to what God is saying to you, so that you can follow up, be obedient, and I believe it has strengthened my faith. So back to this song that Mark asked me about. There is a song called "Walk in the Light." It was actually modernized by Thomas Whitfield, and I sing this song all the time. And it's "Walk in the Light, beautiful light." And all the time when we hear this song, we used to hear it, and my music director at my job, he confirmed. He was like, "That's the song that we sing for altar call oftentimes, to bring people into church." And I was like, I have literally been singing that song for at least 2 months straight, just like walking around singing it, listening to it. If I forget to do it, I created a whole playlist and it includes these songs. And so tomorrow has the link. She could drop that in the chat too. But it what I wanted to go deep because I'm like, why am I singing this song? Like, I'm already to Christ. Like, what's going on? But when I looked up the refrain and what was coming from the song, this idea of walking and living out what Jesus is telling us to do in our daily life. And then the next verse is "Come where the dew drops," and that speaks to God's refreshing grace that's available to anyone who is willing to change. And we know that change is not a singular decision; it is a constant um, redecision, continual decision to continue to make those changes, right? As it's when we are living, actively living in faith, we are protected. And I was like, oh, like that surrounding light from God is there, and it pulled it all together. And I was like, oh, that's why I'm singing this song, because at the end of the day, and what we've talked about literally for the past, I feel like ever in Daystar, but certainly for the last few weeks, is about how to center Jesus in all that we do. And one of the lessons that I've had to learn is that I had to walk in that. Active bravery means you are this um walking in everything that is being put in you to do. You have to walk in that light, and that is not an easy walk, but it is such a necessary walk. And so included in that playlist are some songs that when I feel like I'm about to waver, I go to that song list and I remind myself that not only do I need to walk in the light, but how necessary things are, how how God has made this not an easy thing, but a necessary, but also a very capable thing for us to accomplish. And so that's my third lesson, is that we have to walk in that light, and we have to remember that our faithfulness is our faith and our faithfulness are tied together. And when we put Jesus at the center, then that walk becomes not only more doable, but we can endure to get to it. Um, the fourth thing, and hopefully y'all keep a track of the number because I kind of am and I'm not, but is the courage. It's having courage to accept actually what God is telling you. And it's not enough to just hear it. It's not enough to like necessarily walk in it, but you also have the courage. That means not being afraid to push your abilities to the fullest, and then even explore new ideas, or, and this is important, old fears, right? Different things that might be holding you back. You have to fight through that, and you have to fight even the messages. That's part of my research area, is studying the messages that we receive, and those messages um aren't always in the positive light, but you have to have courage to come out of that. You want to shed light on those things so that you can overcome those things. And sometimes accepting what God is telling you, it might mean that, some people might not be going with you. It might mean that you'll have to lose or leave. I ain't gonna say lose. I should say you're gonna have to leave a place that you thought you were gonna be in for an amount of time. I can't speak enough to courage, but what I will say is, you know, when one of the things that happened this year that I did not account for was losing my best friend, which was, y'all know I love my dog. And she was my home girl, right? But what a lot of people didn't really know, because I didn't really share it, is that I was like scheduled to leave that evening. I was scheduled because I had a speaking engagement, that I had a conference that I was going to be speaking at in Baltimore. And when I had the appointment with Buffy, I was like, okay, we're gonna go get her a checkup, and it's gonna be fine. But when I knew it wasn't going to be fine, I after the appointment, I came home, and I came home without my dog, and I said, "Okay, you have a flight at 7 p.m. and you are supposed to speak." And this is not the first time, but multiple times people will say to me, well, when you're asked to speak, go ahead and do it. And you can't always do that. So I do get that. But in this particular time, when I walked back in this house and I sat on the floor and I asked God, okay, Lord, what is it you gonna want me to do with this? Because me and my dog, we were strong. And it was like, well, what you sitting here for? There, you go get on the flight. And I did. I got on the flight. I went. That amount of courage, I don't know if I would say that I could do that always, but there was something about that particular time that it was like, okay, so it was my time. It was your dog's time, and now it's time for you to go and do what I'm asking you to do in this moment. And what I found to be like so refreshing is that in every step and in every moment, God sent me people. He sent me to a place that was like right by the water. If you've not been to the Baltimore Inner Harbor, I was right by the water. I mean, he upgraded my room. It was just like all kinds of things. And then during this particular conference, we go for a walk around the canal. So I went for a walk. It was everything. And then even out of that came more opportunities to spread the work that I do in print, and more opportunities to speak. And it's like, okay, I needed to go, because what was I going to do sitting here? And so having the courage sometimes to accept that, it's a hard pill to swallow. I'm gonna leave it at that. Number 5, um, centering centering God, whether we see the promises or not, in real time. Understanding that it's not about perfection, it's about progress. I literally have that taped to my wall. I see it every day. It's having what it takes to keep moving in the direction that God is calling you to go. And you don't always get to see everything. And I mean, the examples, if you read, I would encourage you to read this whole chapter of Hebrews 11. In reading the chapter, you will see all these different people who were doing different things. And this is just a snapshot. There are way more people in the Bible that were doing things. And the one thing that it says is that, and also they all didn't get to see the promises. They didn't get to see it in its fullness all the time. And that applies to us too. You don't always get to see everything. Um, in the way, especially in the way that you think you're going to come to see it, right? You have to And you have to be okay with that. And that is a knowing that, okay, God, if this is what you said it's going to be, this is what you said it's going to be. I really centered this, especially in terms of like friendships. I was a kid that thought like, okay, this is my friend. My mom used to say, everybody ain't your friend. Everybody and all your friends not gonna come with you. And so there are some people I'm like, oh no, come on, we all going. Aren't we all going? And it's like, no, we are not going. And so there have been some relationship transitions that happened to me over the course of the past 2 years. And I've had to really sit with that and wrestle and say, okay, God, like, are you saying I'm gonna be doing this alone? Like, what's real? And that's not what he's saying at all, because I'm dramatic, and there are so many other people who are in my life walking this out. And also, it takes that ideology that you're not walking this alone, and because God is with you, you're really not alone. So, and then number 6, and this one has been a critical for this year. Be willing to focus on your own healing. That is a brave space that we don't talk about enough. That we are in spaces that might, will, can attack our mind, our body, sometimes even our spirit, right? And it's up to us to take some brave steps, and that might be uncomfortable. And I am a huge proponent of therapy. I have been in therapy for a while, and even I talk about it often. But the one thing that has happened in this year is that my therapist is suggesting a different type of therapy, right? So normally we know about like talk therapy. That's a thing. It would just go and talk. But sometimes talk therapy is just not enough. There's somatic exercises and breathing and meditation and all these other things to help us clear out and really begin to listen to our bodies. Y'all know I'm a reader, and so I've been reading a lot about autoimmune disorders and their impact of stress and how those kind of commingle, and especially when you have high stress or you have a high pressure position or you just have a high pressure responsibility in your life, and how those things commingle with each other, and how you have to come up with a health plan to help you through that. That's all part of being brave. We are not going to be able to do what God has called us to do if we are unwell. It just don't work like that. So this idea of go to therapy, we self-care is way more than massages and sitting in a hot sauna. It is literally spending time, and it is one of the most uncomfortable things, I would say, that a person can do for themselves. But again, this is a commitment to being brave in this season. Okay. Number 7, trust God over everything. That should be a t-shirt. So if y'all want to print that, that's a free one. Trust God over everything. Um, even even in things where I had been through the process, and I didn't really I experienced a different process, but now this time it's like God, it was a whole different process. And I felt like, and you need to just trust God, just do it. And I'm generally that person. I am that person 100%. Like, I have had some trust God moments, like, this is the moment that you know me in, but I had a conversation with someone. I said, you know, the Ann that you see right now, right? Who travels and has his job and does his stuff, but you didn't know Ann when she had no job. You didn't know Ann when she still had to trust God, when she still had to trust God, when she was raising children, when she was trying to figure out how rent was going to get paid and working 3 and 4 jobs. You didn't know that, but that's a part of the plan, right? Like, my goal is to trust God, and my niece would say, I didn't even know that we were struggling, because at the end of the day, the things, all of our needs were met, right? The outcome of trusting God over everything, even the things that you see, even the things that you might know to be true, is that He will always always show up. You just have to trust him over everything. And then the last thing that I want to say is to be willing to navigate the seasons. You know, I live in a four-season destination. Some other folks do too. Some people flee from the four-season destinations because they don't want to deal with the snow. Right. I particularly, I ain't calling, I ain't saying nobody, but I'm just saying I don't mind the four seasons. Because I've not only I've learned and I don't mind navigating them. Life has seasons too. And some of them are strong seasons, some of them are fun seasons, some of them are sad seasons. And you can have all of the seasons in 1 year, right? In 1 year. You can have, I work at a university, so I often have parents, they send in their kids to college. They don't know what it's like not to have children in the house. They've patterned their whole lives after their kids. And so sometimes they'll call the university and say, hey, can you, my kid hasn't called me. Can you like tell my child to call? Like, no, ma'am, we can't do that. I can't even tell you that your student goes here. That's against the law, right? But what I've learned is like we have to reassure them that it's gonna be okay. Your child, they're an adult, it's gonna be fine, right? And I think that we need to reassure our own selves and our own lives that part of the seasons of life is understanding how to navigate each season and being willing to navigate those seasons, whether they are easy or hard, right? And understanding that there are going to be some hard ones. And you're going to learn from those too. So if I had to think about what that looks like in practice, people don't. I traveled most of July this year. Like I was on and off a plane, and people are like, "That sounds so fun," until you have to pack, until you have to repack, until you living in a hotel and you're eating different foods, and right. And so people that it looks glamorous. Trust me, it is not glamorous at all. But what I have learned is that and this is the simplest way that I thought to explain it. I'm short. So when I go in an airplane and I have to be on that plane for a long time and I'm sitting next to a tall person, I can't just hop over them. I have to like have courage. And sometimes I don't want to like disturb someone, but it's like you're going to be on this plane for 8 hours and not get up, or you're going to have to tap this person next to you and you're gonna have to get out, and you can't always have an aisle seat. So it's not always easy. And so I had to, this last trip from Brazil, I had to crawl over someone to get out to go to it was a strategy to that thing, right? But it was necessary. And I do think that there is an endurance to this race. There is a way to go about having that connection to bravery and having faith and actually operating in that faith is so strong. Um, this is what Hebrews 12 says. Therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every hindrance and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that lay before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. And I read that. I used to always keep that scripture on me when I travel as a reminder of the endurance that I need to have in this. And even more this year with all the changes and all the things. Um, I always want to leave with a message of you can do it if all these other people can do it. And perhaps one of my favorite was Esther. If all of these people can do it, and we have all these examples, and then you have your current life examples, right? And so that is what I want to encourage you to do today. I want to encourage you to think about the life examples that you have yourself seen, experienced, read about. I'm a big biography, autobiography reader, like what is it about their process? Where have they shown you that bravery, that faithfulness, that commitment to what they are called to do, that helps you weather the various seasons? All right, y'all. I think that's all I got for you today.
Thank you for joining us here at the Journey Center. We pray this message has blessed and encouraged you. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss an opportunity to grow in faith with us. We have more uplifting messages and powerful teachings coming your way, so stay connected. Until next time, may God bless you and guide you on your journey.